Welcome, closers and contractors, to episode 11 of the Profits for Sanity podcast. I'm your host, Dominic Caminata, CEO of Grosso University, the industry-leading sales training group. In the world of business, we firmly believe that volume is for vanity and profit is for sanity. And of course, as many of you know, it's the mission of this podcast to bring on the brightest minds in the home improvement and home services industry that can educate you on how to grow and scale a more profitable business. And today is absolutely no exception. I'm honored to be joined by Joe Jordan, who's the CEO and founder of Siro, the premier AI-powered virtual ride-along and sales coaching app that empowers sales teams to achieve apex-level performance. Joe has an extensive background in sales leadership and experienced firsthand the challenges and frustrations of trying to command a team with little to no visibility as to what they're actually doing in the home. So Joe's an absolute wealth of knowledge when it comes to sales and sales leadership. So as always, get your notepads out, get your popcorn ready, get ready to take lots of notes. This is definitely going to be a fantastic episode. So Joe, first I want to thank you, of course, for flying all the way from New York to join us here in the Grosso studio. It's obviously great to have you, and congrats on all your success at Siro. So kind of kicking things off here, you had a massive team that you were able to lead and command that you built in a previous life, obviously working for Cutco. Yeah. Do you mind sharing that journey from sales to sales leadership and kind of what that initial inspiration was for creating a product like Siro?
Yeah, absolutely. So I got my start at Cutco, basically selling knives to moms. Didn't expect to like it or be good at it, but both ended up happening. Like I was studying computer science and business at Penn, and I knew I wanted to run a business someday, but the reason that I took a letter in the mail was because I missed the internship boat. Like all my friends had an internship here, internship there, and I was like, well, you know, doing some sales job sounds a little bit better on the resume than camp counselor, so yeah. I'll give it a shot. And I ended up loving it and being good at it. Mm-hmm. So I was number 2 in the office out of about 80 reps that summer, and I really enjoyed it. Because I got paid based on how good I was and how hard I worked instead of just being paid the same amount of time, paid for my time, right? For the
So
hour.
You're a wrestler too, right? Going back into school. So I liken sales to wrestling, right? Because it's both that individual and team sport.
Yes.
So I wrestled for a team that was okay, but definitely weren't setting records. But that didn't limit how far I could go. You know, I could win state if I wanted to, even if it was just me on my own, and some salespeople maybe can relate to that. And I think of sales similar to wrestling too. It's like, if I go on the mat and I lose, who can I point the finger at?
Right.
You know, the opponent beat me. So when you enter that house, it's you and the prospect. If you walk out empty-handed, who's a better salesperson in that sales encounter? Was it you or them, right? So I really like the full accountability, but to your point, you really, which is scary for people, you make what you're worth.
Exactly.
Now, I'm curious for you, like, what do you feel made you proficient at sales right in the beginning? I guess what skills do you felt you brought to the table, or things you've learned in your life, whether it could be in sports, your competitive nature? What do you feel made sales a good fit for you early on?
Yeah, it's a good question. I set the record, at least up until that point that year. Like no one had sold more in their first 10 days than I had up until that point in the year. That was like the end of June, July. It wasn't broken until August. Yeah. Why was I so good out of the gate? Well, with Cutco, it was, I would say it was 2 things. One was I learned like the approach really, really quickly. Like I have a good memory, so I was able to transition from like just saying the script to actually like playing the man, right? Moving from playing the cards to playing the man, to use a poker analogy. Yeah. And so it was that, moving really quickly there. I had a really good list of like people to start with because I knew a lot of people from sports, from Boy Scouts, from like I was doing all sorts of other extracurricular activities. From college, I had a lot of college friends who were from my county in New Jersey. But the biggest thing I would say was like learning that script quickly and then being a good listener. Because at the end of the day, like with Cutco, the most important thing, like most people are not going to buy the first set, the $1,000 set that you ask them to buy in the close. And so you have to be really, really good at figuring out how to drop down to a smaller set or combination of pieces that makes sense for someone. And when you're dropping down, you have to not get less excited. You have to get more excited.
Yeah.
So it's like, oh yeah, no problem. Like my parents were worried about this big set too because they also have 2 kids in college. It just didn't fit in their budget. So I've got another set that might be perfect for you.
Yeah.
It's called the Galley set. It's only a few less pieces and about half the price. So if you look at this set right here, and then and just learning to do that one thing, dropping down well, was what ended up making me successful.
That's a huge thing that we train salespeople to do, because everyone's so caught up in throwing as many discounts at their prospects until they roll over and buy, which is not a sales strategy, that's order taking. And what I'm trying to encourage a lot of salespeople to do, which is a much better negotiating tactic, is product dropping. So, and a lot of the salespeople like to lead with their lowest cost, most affordable or economical option first, but that doesn't give you a lot of wiggle room for negotiating, right? Lead with the dream, because obviously they deserve to at least entertain that idea. Let's go with what I truly want, need, and desire. We can always product drop to something a little more economical, and it's like a perceived discount, but you're still maintaining your profit margin.
Yeah, and the thing is, if I led with the Galley set instead of the $1,000 set, then they would have said the Galley set was more expensive.
Yep.
But they end up buying the Galley set.
Yep. I want to give you an example. So I did a lot of one-day bath trainings for sale. So at Mad City, we were the largest one-day bath installer in the country for luxury bath and BCI.
Yeah.
And we sold a ton of walk-in showers. And I told my salespeople, if you're ever in a house where the homeowner wants a walk-in shower due to accessibility, which is common, trying to make the house safer for the elderly.
Yep.
I want you, even if it doesn't seem to make any sense, I want you to educate the homeowner and do the best you can to demonstrate a walk-in bathtub. Even if they don't even talk about a walk-in bathtub, if it's not on their radar, I want you to demonstrate all the therapeutic benefits, build value, price condition, and show both options when price is on the table. And the reason why that was so powerful, when the homeowner saw a $25,000, $30,000 price tag for a walk-in tub, fully loaded, and then they saw the shower was half, like you were talking about, only 15. It made that shower seem so inexpensive. They're like, I'll just do the shower.
Yep.
Whereas to your point, if they led with a $15,000 shower, now they're like, well, 15 grand just for a shower. Now they're going to want to go down to like 10 or less, right? So it was like a perceived discount in their mind. Again, that's a very important strategy to maintain profit margin at the negotiating table. So of course, you're doing well at Cutco. You're one of the top reps in the country. You're kicking butt, or obviously you're loving what you're doing, and then you get into a sales leadership role. And I guess explain that journey and how big it became. How many reps were you overseeing at the tail end there?
Yeah, so over the course of the summer, we launched 186 sales reps.
186 reps.
Yes.
So overseeing 186 adult lead babies, sales professionals. And one thing that I've talked to you about, off camera is I have all these reps doing it, and a certain percentage were good, certain percentage were okay. There was a big percentage that weren't proficient at all. But the reality is we don't know. We have no idea what they're actually doing. Are they following this system? Are they doing the basic fundamentals that we know are effective in terms of following the system? So kind of explain that frustration, because this is something that owners and leaders can relate to. They go through all this training with their reps. They spend all this time providing all the tools and resources. They give them every opportunity to tee them up with quality leads. But then, truthfully, they have no clue what happens in the house, right?
Yeah. So I remember really vividly, we had a push period, a contest period, where we had probably our top 10 sales reps committed to selling $10,000 worth of Cutco, which doesn't sound a lot next to like home improvement ticket sizes, but over an 18-day period. But it's like a solid amount of Cutco to sell in an 18-day period. And with like 5 days left, no one was anywhere close to their goal. They just were not on track. So at that point, like the only tool I had, like I didn't know why they weren't selling. they seemed to have the appointments, but the sales weren't coming in. And like, I can ask them to role play, but it's going to sound different than it does in the home. I can try and shadow them, but that's going to take too long. I don't have time to do that for even 10 people because I'm launching another 30 reps this week, and I need to train them and recruit for the next training class the following week. So it actually was less time expensive for me to go out and like sell the rest of the way to the goal, like personally, and try and inspire them to just sell more.
Yeah, so you're trying to lead by example and be that pace horse for your team to inspire them to kick it up a notch. Yeah, stop being mediocre. Let me show you how it's done.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I sold a lot over that 5-day period. I ended up hitting the 10K and then one order canceled, so it went down to like 9K or something like that in the 4 days that were left.
And that's a great feeling, but it's also not a great feeling, right?
Right.
Because just for example, I work with sales leaders that, again, this is the wrong mindset of leadership. If anyone thinks this way watching this is one thing I want to course correct right now. There's these sales leaders that I work with that brag about the fact that they help their salespeople close sales over the phone. Like, yeah, I just get on the phone with the prospect, I close it for them. So if you had two choices, one was I'm going to close the sale for them and do their job. The other choice is I'm going to empower the salesperson to do it on their own accord. Which one do you think is a better option? Because what ended up happening with this company when that sales leader went on vacation or took time off, what do you think happened to sales performance?
Yeah.
Dropped off a cliff. So too many leaders, and this is something that occasionally owners can be guilty of and sales leaders alike, is they want to lead their team. You know, essentially I'm navigating the team, I'm choosing the destination, charting the course, and I'm driving the ship at the same time. It's like, you got to get your hands off the steering wheel. Your team should be the one driving the ship, and your goal as a leader. And occasionally you do have to lead by example. You have to show them what's possible. But then that's a very short-lived thing that I have to be doing. My job as the leader is to give them the tools, resources, and training to empower them to do it on their own accord, right?
Yeah, totally. Yeah. And it didn't really end up working. Like, I don't think anyone sold more as a result of me getting out there.
Yeah.
The point is basically like we broke recruiting records. We had an insane recruiting machine to put together 186 sales reps in just like 3 months, but it was all for nothing because we couldn't change their performance. Nothing we did was able to make them sell more. And it's like, why not? There's only 2 or 3 mistakes you can make on a sales conversation for CutGo where you won't sell something. And the challenge is just to figure out which one of those 3 mistakes they're making. So as I was thinking about it after the summer, like, we sold a lot. I mean, we were top 10 in the nation out of like 500, 600 offices.
Wow.
But still, I wasn't super happy with the performance because as a sales rep, I gained a ton. Like, I would trade my business degree for it. I wouldn't be able to do what I do now without that experience selling CutGo because I learned not just how to sell, but how to bet on myself. We only had a handful of people ever come back to CutGo or anything related to sales after that summer. Most people quit. A third sold nothing. The average tenure was about a month, and that part really pissed me off. And the only thing I could think of was, well, what if we could record the conversations and just bookmark where those 2 or 3 mistakes would happen if they were to happen, so that we could, when we're launching a new class, record all their conversations and queue up those moments like a music playlist.
Yeah.
We just launched them. They have appointments after the training. Let's listen to everybody's close. Let's listen to everybody's ask for referrals. Let's listen to everybody's price conditioning, and go through those critical moments in maybe an hour for 20, 30 people.
Yeah.
And so that was the idea. Shrink the conversation down from an hour to 5 minutes.
Yeah, get to those key moments. So that was obviously the initial seed that turned into the mighty oak tree that Siro is today. So you had this inspiration, and obviously necessity a lot of times is a mother of innovation and creativity. And so I have a problem I need to solve. So now fast forward, what exactly is Siro? And obviously we're going to talk about some of your success, but I'm just curious, as a startup that's been around for what, 2 years, you said? About 2 years, roughly?
We've been selling for 2.5 years.
2.5 years.
Founded the company 4 years ago.
Right. So you have this amazing product, amazing technology, but for a startup, you're partnering up with some of the largest companies and PE firms in the industry. So just kind of briefly explain, what is Siro exactly now? What does it become?
Yeah.
And why do you feel some of the largest home improvement networks of companies are latching onto this and using it as a foundational pillar of their sales organization?
Yeah, totally. So the super quick overview of what Siro is, it's an app that goes on your phone, your tablet, any mobile device to record conversations that you have in the home or at the door. It'll transcribe and analyze those conversations to identify places where people can improve and help you find the examples you need as a manager to create that behavior change. So really that's it. You record the conversations, helps you find problems and helps you fix problems with the examples of the top people on your team.
Yeah. So I didn't have 186 reps, but I know the feeling of having 55 sales professionals, and we had 5 locations in Wisconsin. So I had reps all over the state, and I did all the sales training, I did all the sales meetings, but I had no clue after the trainings and the meetings what was actually happening.
Yeah.
And I've mentioned this to you before, my only reference point to get visibility on my team cumulatively, like what's happening out there, was looking at the sales efficiency reports and looking at, okay, where's our demo rate this week, this month? Where's our closing rate? Where's our average sale at? Because you'd see these numbers go up and down. How is our retention? Are we buttoning up our sales? Credit declines, of course, ultimately, what's our NSLI? Because that was the number one way I was compensated, was the cumulative NSLI of the whole team needed to increase, right? So I was fanatical about those numbers, but still, just looking at a number, what's the cause, right? I'm just looking at the actual symptom. I'm not getting to the root cause of why that number is what it is. And I had theories and assumptions, but as a sales leader, I spent most of my time hearing the excuses the salespeople make, which is very common, right? Salespeople are salespeople, right? They're liars sometimes. They lie about things, they exaggerate. But salespeople were trying to recall secondhand with distorted information what they think happened. And of course, they're always trying to cover their own butt. So it's always, the marketing department's fault. The lead, was a bad lead. There just wasn't a good fit. The homeowner, they just didn't have money, or they didn't have whatever, XYZ, fill in the blank. And I actually got this from a friend of mine, Wendy Harmeyer. She's actually a client of ours. She's like, you can make excuses or you can make money, but you can't make both.
Yeah.
But this is the ultimate accountability tool ever when you think about Siro, because now we can put all the excuse making aside, and for the first time ever, sales leaders and owners have absolute visibility as to what their team's doing inside every home, on every lead, every single day. And what blows me away is the efficiency of it. And I've shared this with you before. As much as I'm honored to be able to talk about these products and get to know you and obviously kind of work together on things, it also bothers me because I just think of how much struggle I had to deal with as a sales leader not having this, right? And I think about all the potential I would have had because, I did some great things as a sales leader, but I just can't help but go back in time and like, gosh, if I had anything remotely close to Siro, what I would have been able to do with that technology. So now you got this thing after a sales encounter, it literally gives you a summary telling you what happened. And even in just the summary, you can get really precise information. But what are all the types of data and the vital information that Siro provides to a sales leader where they can really get granular on how to course correct their salespeople?
Yeah, totally. So fundamentally, it's sort of like having X-ray vision.
Yeah.
Where, previously these conversations are sort of impossible to interrogate. Mm-hmm. And now we're able to see exactly what's happening, pinpoint where, the bone is broken, and then have a cast ready to put on it. So what specific insights are you able to see? First of all, we're going to bookmark all the key moments of the sales conversation. Mm-hmm. When are people, greeting the homeowner at the door? When is the rep starting the survey, when is the rep doing the inspection, company story, product demonstration, offering financing, pre-close, porch light close, right? All these sorts of things. And then on the customer side, when and which objections are they giving? So you're able to see that on an individual conversation. What parts of the process did they hit? What parts of the process did they not hit? What objections came up and when? And you're able to see that at the aggregate level. So which parts of the process is my team skipping or doing in the wrong order? What objections are we losing to the most? So that's one type of insight. The other type of insight is about how you conduct the conversation in general. So what is your talk ratio, which helps you find out if you're getting the customer to open up or you're just talking at them, which is
because
really...
we've seen that in some of the recordings where the sales rep has a paragraph this long and the customer replies with like 3 words. And then the sales rep has another paragraph this long, and I don't know if this is the exact number, but from the research I've done or the data I've seen, it appears that it's common for salespeople to dominate the conversation about 80% of the time. That's common. Whereas we want to try to get to a balanced talk ratio in the house. Ideally make the whole thing a conversation, not an interrogation.
Totally.
But you have that visibility. So, and then you can showcase and highlight, guys, it's pretty undeniable that the top performers are talking less. They're listening more. They're asking more questions. Let's give you an example. Click, and then you get to hear and actually experience, go inside the home with that salesperson on that journey with a real customer. Because you've said this before, you can role play in class, which of course is really valuable, right? Drills for skills I want to rehearse and practice, but it's not the same as being across the kitchen table from a real customer.
Yes, role play is for practice. It's not for diagnosis. So if you want someone to do it a certain way, you have them role play it that way. But if you want to find out like why something isn't working, asking them to role play it is not going to get you all the way there. Like maybe it helps, but it's always going to sound different from it does in the home. Whereas with Siro, okay, I want to know what your survey sounds like. I click your name, I click survey, and now I have a playlist of the last 10 times that you did it, and it jumps me right to that moment. I can listen in the car instead of Joe Rogan, and the moment I hear something that I want to give feedback on, I press voice comment, I record it, I send it, hit next, and at the same time I just have my other hand on the wheel, right?
So now, what do you feel is the biggest difference, and this is kind of a rhetorical question because you and I have talked about this before, but when a salesperson learns from their peers versus trying to learn from their sales leader, what's the biggest difference, and why do you feel salespeople learning from one another is, in a lot of cases, even more impactful?
Yeah, so for context, one of the things that we have in Siro is what we call the posted section, where everyone on the team can post their biggest wins, the recordings and the moments that they felt went the best. And then it goes to a trending section in Siro where whatever's getting the most attention goes to the top, sort of like an Instagram or TikTok feed. And then you have a leaderboard of who has the hottest trending recording. So what we're doing is we're getting the team competing to create training content for each other. And then if a new rep wants to know how does the team do this thing, they can go and queue up like handling the I need to get other quotes first objection, and here are all the top examples where people overcame that. So why is that so powerful? Well, one, it actually means the tool is going to get used.
Hey closers, it's Dan Coombsbury from Grosso University. I'm the sales trainer who runs our monthly Sales Academy Masterclass, where we walk you through our 11-step process for in-home sales in the home improvement industry. This process is perfect for salespeople of any level of experience, whether you're green coming right into the field or you've been doing this for 30 years. We promise you that you're going to learn something that you can take out that day and help you close business. From my personal experience, I know that many homeowners that you talk to are looking to work with a credible expert who is knowledgeable, but they don't like being sold. The beautiful part about this process is it can be tailored for any personality type, any problem you may run into, and we're going to go through this in such a detail-oriented manner that you'll be prepared for any situation. From walking up and knocking on the door all the way through buttoning up the deal, we will teach you the nuanced art form that is one call closing. This is a skill set that helped me make multiple six-figure income for years and years, and now, because I get to sit on this side of the camera, I get to pass that skill set along to you. I hope you're up to the task, because I'll tell you, this is a 145-page book that we train over a 2-week span. It is coupled with our 11-part video series that's broken down so it's easy to digest. No matter what type of learner you are, we accommodate you. Now, at the end of our 2-week training process, you will have to pass a final exam, and it's not easy. You'll have to score at least an 85% on this final exam in order to become a certified sales warrior through the Grosso University program. And that's where the hard work begins. But if you're up to the task and you want to make life-changing money and cultivate a skill set that will permeate into all areas of your life, I invite you to join me in the Sales Academy Masterclass. We have classes that start on the second Monday of every month, and I look forward to seeing you in class. And as always here at Grosso University, yes, you are a closer.
Because it's no longer Big Brother. This is something where we're actually all learning together. And then the second piece is it actually ends up creating most of the improvement, because what we've seen is, frankly, most managers really struggle to actually get their reps to change their behavior. We can get in front of the room and we can talk about why it's important to do something a certain way, but sometimes reps straight up don't believe us that that's the right way to do it. Even when they do, they may not be able to actually implement, because either like my style doesn't match yours, the way you just role played it, or I just misinterpreted it and I think I'm doing it, but I'm accidentally doing something completely different. And so what we've seen is that examples from top performers get people to change their behavior immediately, because they hear it from someone in the trenches. They hear it working on a real customer, and it's from someone who's kicking their ass on the sales leaderboard. And so now people are excited about learning something new versus sort of annoyed that their manager is telling them to do it this way again, by the book.
I was sharing this with you, the old-fashioned way that I had to do this, which again, Siro is light years ahead of this, but so I would manually ride along with all my reps, like observe them in the house, and certainly the top performers that had obvious ways of delivering a certain step in the sale that was really proficient, right? I'm like, wow, that was better than I can do, which is common. Again, one of the things I had as a sales leader is a lot of humility, and I think that was a big strong suit. I commonly went out in front of my team and said, I'm not even the best salesperson in this room, guys. I know some things you don't know, you know some things I don't know, together we can do great things, right? That's basically how I commanded my team. But I learned more from observing my reps, and then when I saw something that I thought was valuable that a rep did in the house, I would have them in the next sales meeting go through that part of the process, and I would experience when I would teach and preach in the sales meetings, the salespeople would be kind of like this, like, you know, absorbing it, but not frantically taking notes. But then when a salesperson went up there and went through that, all of a sudden everyone else is like, oh my God, this is like gold, I can't wait. They're so much more passionate and excited to hear that information from their coworkers, from their peers, from people just like them. So having that playlist that a rep can turn on where they can hear all those key moments. And of course, a lot different in a real house versus in a classroom. And even on ride-alongs, the thing I love about this, when I'm riding along with a rep and watching them, they're gonna perform different than they do by themselves. So you're getting a much more genuine, authentic rendition or example of how top performers actually perform in the house. And this is what is important about this, okay? I talk about creativity is really important in sales, and it tends to be something that is pretty rare in adulthood. People don't have much creativity as adults, right? But in sales, it's important to have creativity. So now, when you have your sales training, you have your sales training manual, you have your sales training content, the scripts, the methodology, that's the foundation. Now, just like any foundation is meant to be built upon, and how your team really accelerates their growth and snowballs like slingshots forward, is extracting as much of those creative outside the box ideas that naturally top performers come up with over time. And I want to document that, and your product really does that for you. It's like, here's exactly what top performers are doing outside the box. And I can give you so many examples, but I had a sales rep one time that went to a house and the prospects are on the back deck staining the deck. And I guarantee a lot of sales reps would have called that an NQ or tried to reschedule it, like now's not a good time, they're staining the deck. This salesperson decided, I'm going to roll up my sleeves and help them stain the deck for the next hour so they can finish faster, meanwhile building wicked amounts of rapport and trust. And then he goes into a house to sell them the window project. It was absolute laydown. It was like the easiest sale of all time. And I've had similar things where a sales rep goes to a house and the guy's milking cows in the barn. And the sales rep knows nothing about milking cows, but uses that as a huge benefit. He's like, oh my God, I've always wanted to try this. I know it sounds weird, but would you mind if I actually help you guys milk the cows? I've never done it before. So then he's in the barn helping them milk the cows, building all kinds of rapport, goes in the house, absolute laydown, right? Just creative outside the box. It's hard to train that stuff.
Yeah.
But that's what we can document in Siro.
Yep. So one of our account executives at Siro actually came from pest control, and I forget if it was him or someone on his team was actually like out back shooting like an AR-15 with a prospect before they closed him
Sounds
on
awesome.
a pest control project. It's like that sort of stuff is so fun, and like there's no way to share what actually happened with the team without something like Siro. And now like every rep who's onboarding after that can see that and be like, wow, that was awesome. Like that's really cool. Yeah. But then learn from how they did that, and the results speak for themselves. Like when we look at overall, typically what tends to happen in the home improvement industry is we'll see sales productivity improve anywhere from 25 to 35%, somewhere in that range. We've replicated that those kinds of results a bunch of times now with companies like Easy Baths, all the way up to companies like Great Day, some of the biggest companies in the industry. But my favorite stories are the individual ones. Yeah. I mean, we've had examples of people who were benched that because they listened to a ton of Siro recordings, when they came back from being so bad that they were banned from running leads to above average. And then people who were just getting started, they'd never run an appointment before, but they listened to a lot of recordings in the month leading up to it, and then on their first job, sell a $96,000 ticket. Yeah. And even the best reps who might be zoning out in your trainings on the basics day in and day out can now listen to each other and start to learn some of the really advanced tips that you're not going to cover for a training in a team meeting with people, where you're sort of like focusing on some fundamental or some basic thing, and you'll see their numbers improve too. I mean, we have people meeting each other in the posted section on Siro from different regions, and those kinds of moments are really, really special for us.
So my experience doing field management and ride-alongs, a lot of times to get a salesperson back on track, kicking butt and taking names, it wasn't like a profound heavy lifting operation. It was like small tweaks in the steps of the sale. And if I'm a sales rep that maybe is not doing well and I'm listening to those recordings, I would feel it would help build a lot of confidence, because I assume what I'm hearing is something similar to what I know I'm capable of. It's like I'm listening to these recordings. These guys aren't like superhuman. It's not like when they speak, it's like the Holy Gospel. They sound similar to me. There's just a couple things they do a little bit better.
Yep. This
is why I preach this all the time. To make twice as much money in sales, to be twice successful, doesn't mean you have to drive twice as far, work twice as many hours. All it requires is just getting a little bit more proficient at the steps of the sale.
Yep.
And that's what Siro allows people to do. You can really begin fine-tuning. And how about what almost nobody talks about in training, a sales rep fine-tuning their communication skills, tonality, voice inflection, their talk speed, their level of patience, the talk ratio. A salesperson can now take full responsibility for that stuff. Listening to yourself is not easy to do for people, right? But the thing I always ask is, when a sales rep's listening to themselves, would you buy from that person? Is that someone that you would trust when they're speaking to you that way? Or is there something about your voice that seems like you're not authentic, you're not genuine, you're not speaking honestly. Like, is that truly you talking, or is that a script? Right. So you have to work on those things, and Siro gives them that visibility into their own personal performance so they can self-improve.
Yeah, we had a rep who, after listening to their survey portion, like they were having trouble getting customers to open up, especially about the budget, which is like something very important to try and find out in the survey. And he was listening to himself, and he was like, "This doesn't actually sound like me."
Right.
And he played it for his wife, and he was like, "Does that sound like me?" And his wife was like, "No, that doesn't sound like you." And so, like, the biggest unlock for him was just relaxing and being himself a little bit more in the beginning of the conversation. Got the customer to open up, his talk ratio flipped, his interactivity increased, and he started selling more. And it's little tweaks like that. I mean, even me at Cutco, when I listened to one of the top reps that my manager had ever trained, who had one of the highest average orders in Cutco history, I made a couple of tweaks. I inserted like 2 or 3 analogies. I changed the names of the sets, and switched the order of 2 things. It was like a couple of tweaks, and my average order doubled overnight. It's like, if I had just done that 2 months ago, I would have made twice as much money over the last 2 months. Are you kidding me?
Isn't that crazy?
And so it's not about performing open heart surgery on your conversation. It's about getting in, using Siro's intelligence to find out what are those 1 or 2 tweaks, maybe get an example from a top rep on that thing, and do that every week, and your sales can just skyrocket.
So I had a sales rep one time that, for one reason or the other, in the close, he kept getting customers kicked into fight or flight, and basically they would want to terminate the sale quickly. They would feel pressured.
Yeah.
And I rode along with them, and I just recorded them on my phone. I didn't have anything like Siro. It was just, I knew that moment I had to record it to hear what he was saying, because he's talking himself out of the house somehow. And after he delivered his initial visit reward or initial visit discount, his word track was, "So if we can get this deal done today," and he said, "We can get this deal done today." Now, first of all, is the customer a deal? Do they want to feel like you're just trying to get a deal done? And the word today, the today only sales gimmick, it seems like a sleazy used car salesperson. So I said, here's what I want you to do. Instead of saying get this deal done today, I want you to change it. If we're able to earn your business while we're here this evening, keep us from making the trip back out. And that was the only change I had to make in his word track. And what do you think happened to his closing? Not getting kicked out of houses. People are comfortably saying the same thing, but the way in which he said it, and of course his voice inflection, it completely transformed his performance. That one little tweak. And that's the type of stuff we can do with a product like Siro, is we can fine tune those key moments where they either got the sale or lost it. But you're not going to know until you hear those moments. And this is where I was, relating to what you're saying. It didn't sound like him. I had him listen to himself that moment where he said, "Let's get the deal done today." And he's like, "Oh my God, I sound like a used car salesperson." I'm like, until you have that outside perspective, it's really hard to course correct, right? But this is what gives us that visibility.
Yeah, and it's so fast. When we were going through and doing a couple of these like ride-alongs through Siro yesterday, I mean, we took a 2-hour conversation, and while we were talking about it, we still were able to find a problem, find an example from another rep that would have corrected the problem in 8.5 minutes.
Yeah.
And if that 2-hour conversation would take you 30 minutes each way to drive to, that's like 3 hours. And you round up, you say it was 9 minutes we took. We sped that up by 20 times.
Yeah. Yeah, that's what actually one of the questions I had here is, how much more efficient can a sales leader become when they're armed with something like Siro? I mean, you just kind of answered that question, 20x your efficiency as a sales leader. And of course, we're talking about significantly reducing the frequency that you have to get in the trenches. Now, I'm still a firm believer that there's going to be times when an in-person ride-along is the number one prescription that we need to get the salesperson turned around. Because we know how powerful that human-to-human interaction is, and spend that day with that rep. But oh my gosh, if I can see a snapshot, here's what my whole team's doing, here's what this individual's doing, here's exactly where they need to course correct. And even like crafting sales meetings. And again, I think of how much time I spent trying to go through the little information I had to manually create sales meetings. And then I see you going to Siro. Hey, Siro, can you create a sales meeting that speaks to what my team needs to improve on, as a whole? And then boom, Siro spits out, 3 or 4 major bullet points. Here's what we would recommend covering. Your team needs to ask more questions. They need to listen more. They need to slow down their talk speed, invest more time, whatever. Differentiate more, price condition. They're getting a lot of price objections, so we need to get better at differentiation and price conditioning. It's all right there, and it takes you literally 2 seconds. And now, because I was like, what if you show up to the office and you got like 10 minutes before your sales meeting and you don't have an agenda put together yet? What are you going to do? He's like, watch. And then boom, the agenda's done. I'm like, oh, that would have been a life-changing technology for me to have, because I've had that experience, right? But it's very, very inspiring. And now, in terms of profitability, obviously it's a Profits for Sanity podcast. How does an AI technology like Siro overall as a company, you talked about improving performance, but how do you feel it also helps with improving on profitability, the bottom line, net profit at the end of the day for an organization?
Yeah, well, it's as simple as this, right? We talk to a lot of companies, especially the biggest companies in the industry, who feel like we can't scale our revenue without scaling our headcount. And if all you're doing is spending more money for more leads and paying more sales reps, then you're growing your revenue, but you're not getting more profitable. I mean, your profits in absolute terms obviously increase, but your margins aren't changing. What Siro helps with is for you to scale your revenue without scaling your headcount or your costs. The biggest expense a company carries is a missed sale. And when you can increase your productivity by 25 to 30%, your NSLI or your yield by 25 to 30%, just increase either your close rate or your ticket size. We've seen both increase from Siro. Then your margins actually change. And you're no longer in this grim numbers game where if you want to sell more, you have to have more people. Now, one of the cool things about Siro is it actually makes it easier to add more people as well once you implement it, because you don't need as many managers for all of those reps. One manager can handle more reps. You can scale more quickly, and it's easier to bring in a new sales rep into a company that's performing at the highest level than it is to bring them in to one that's not doing as well.
Yeah, they're going to run proportionate to the pace horse, and this is something I experienced firsthand. Again, it took me a long time, but when the team is leveraging technology, they're all kicking butt, they're all learning from each other, growing as a unit, because I've seen a lot of sales organizations where these sales reps are pretty much on an island by themselves, trying to wing it, figure things out, trial and error. There's a lot of sink or swim out there, and this is the exact opposite. It truly becomes that individual and team sport, and your team is growing together as one connected mastermind group. They're all learning best practices from each other, holding each other accountable, competing. It's friendly competition. It's what I feel is one of the ultimate sales cultures, which is like an open book culture of sales leaders, where everyone is a leader in their own respect. And you had mentioned like when sales leaders have, or salespeople have like the most watched or listened to audio clip or segment, like the dopamine hits they're getting and stuff like that. You want to speak to that, like how this becomes almost addicting for them?
Yeah, I mean, so we had someone who was on another like technology in the space switch over to Siro, and they were like, yeah, my husband hates it because I'm just always on it. After dinner. And then on the other side, when you're posting these things, you'll get notifications like every 10 views. So it's like, okay, your post is getting some attention. Oh, your post is heating up, so on and so forth. So I love doing that and posting myself in our own training library, because we use it ourselves. And so it makes it fun to learn.
So now, how long does it take to really onboard a company? So from the time they contact Siro, and you have a proprietary method that you use to make sure everybody is like loving using this. They don't think of this as a micromanagement tool. They look at this as a sales empowerment tool that can really take the career to the next level. But how long does that process usually take to onboard a team successfully?
Yeah, the onboarding process, basically it's a set of a couple of calls. It takes about 2 weeks. And we can move faster if you really need to move fast, but we want to make sure we do it right. So typically that onboarding process is about 2 weeks, and you'll start seeing results after 30, 60 days.
Nice. So, and of course, once they onboard, or if they want to start the conversation, you'll take them through the demonstration. But the thing I like is that moment when you have data from the sales team, and then you're taking that sales leader on that first virtual ride along. I guess, what's the type of reactions you typically get when that sales leader experiences that first ride along moment, when they're kind of walking them through?
Either like, oh wow, or oh shit.
Yeah.
People are typically unpleasantly surprised by what's actually happening within the first 2 minutes.
Yeah, that's absolutely unreal. And again, this is something I'm obviously really happy to hear about all your success and what Siro's doing. It is frustrating for me to see this technology now, but this is why people are saying AI could be more disruptive than the internet, because you can clearly see companies that are using AI and technology like Siro, you can't compete. So again, if you're looking for that silver bullet that can literally take your sales performance of your whole team to the next level, if you're not using a product like Siro, you definitely need to get in contact with Siro ASAP and go through the process. I promise it'll absolutely blow your mind what you can do in this as a sales leader and as a salesperson. And don't worry about your team pushing back on this. They got that problem solved. Their team, this is not their first rodeo. They've been doing it for over 2.5 years, and they got a process where your team is not only going to embrace it, but absolutely love it. And in some cases, maybe even become addicted. So again, I know your time's valuable. We appreciate your time. And if someone wants to get a hold of Siro to get more information, what's the best way to contact you?
Yeah, just go to our website, Siro.ai, Siro.ai, and book a conversation with us. We'll figure out if it's a fit.
Excellent. Well, again, Joe, congratulations to you and Siro. It's a pleasure to have you on the Profits for Sanity podcast. So another amazing episode. Hopefully you took away some valuable information. I want to thank you for watching this podcast. I know there's a million podcasts you could be watching. And on behalf of Grosso University and Siro, volume is for vanity and profit is for
sanity.
All right. Thank you. We'll see you on the next episode.